So to summarize, will I sew this pattern again? Hello everyone, welcome back to Vox Atelier. I hope you are doing great. Today I want to share with you a little bit of my experience working with this pattern. This is McCall's 8104, and then I'm going to share with you as well some of the projects that I'm excited to work on during the next week. So let's start by discussing McCall's 8104. I was actually supposed to share this with you on Friday, but I was hit with a migraine that lasted for 3 days, so I wasn't able to film, so here we are today. So McCall's 8104, I want to share with you a little bit of the issues with the sizing, the finished garment measurement versus the the size that they suggest that you do. I'll collect here the finished garment measurements from the size band that I bought, which is size 2 to size 14, 6 to 14. And I want to discuss the fabric, the experience sewing, some issues, all of that. Starting with the sizing of this pattern, I have bought the size band 6 to size 14. I am an 84 centimeter bust, 68 centimeter waist, and 93 centimeter hips. So when looking at the pattern, they suggested me to sew the size 12, 10 to 12. And when I looked at the pattern pieces themselves, I found the finished garment measurements, and I'll put it right here. I'll add the finished garment measurements from the pattern, the band 6 to 14 right here, so that you can see it as well. So I have chosen according to my measurements, so 84 bust, 68 centimeters waist, and 93 hips. I have chosen to do a size 6 because I wanted a very fitted garment, or a more fitted garment. Given the finished garment measurements for the hips, I thought that I would have a lot more room. For size 6 they give 49 inch or 126 centimeters for the hips, so I thought I would have a lot more space, that the skirt piece would be a little bit more flared out, but it's actually not. That's one of the issues. I thought that I would have a little bit I thought that the design would be a little bit more flared at the hips than it actually is. With this, I've been seeing all of the versions that people did and posted on Instagram. Sizing is a constant issue, but the people who are happy with the design, with the dress they have made, have chosen something in between. Not the size that they would choose according to the finished garment measurements, and not the size that they recommend. So actually, if I would go back in time, I think I would do a size 8 or a size 10, so something in between. With this design, I think you really need to have a certain amount of ease. For example, the bodice, the sleeves are grown-on sleeves from the bodice, so that by itself is something in a design that is going to be a little bit restrictive when you move your arms. So the smaller size you choose, the more restrictive it is going to be. So if I knew that, I think I would have chosen a size 8 at least, as I mentioned. It would not completely, remove the issue, but I would have a lot more space to move my arms, I think. You can see that when I move my arms up, it really drags the dress up, but this is something that I think you'll have in any size, but it's more uncomfortable the smaller you go in the size band, I would say. In the last video I showed the dress and I had the sleeve cuffs, which is version B, but that's what I chose to sew initially, but I ended up semi-ripping it off, and I'm much happier with the amount of movement that you get if you do the sleeves from version C. Version A has an additional piece, even more flare, so I think that if you do sew this dress, I would recommend to avoid adding the sleeve cuffs to the dress. In terms of fabric, I think that choosing a fabric that gives you some drape really gives a nice touch to the dress. I am a fan of sewing with viscose. This is a viscose. Even though I'm not very happy with the color there against my skin, the drape that it gives the dress, I think that's perfect. If you sew, you can of course sew with something like a cotton, but it will just be a little bit more stiff. So I would recommend something with drape, definitely. In the comments in the last video, someone also mentioned some issues sewing the neckband or the button band. One thing is that you need to pay attention to the side of the piece that you're attaching to the bodice. If you attach the wrong side, you'll have the piece gaping. If you have some gaping there, that's a sign you've attached the wrong side of the facing. If you attach the right side, you will have a lot of difficulty matching the pieces. The reason why is because you have a seam allowance included in the pattern that is 1.5 centimeters or 5/8 of an inch, I think. And I really recommend reducing that amount to 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch. That will make your life a lot easier matching that curve. So am I going to sew this design again? Probably not, or at least not in the near future. I think that some of the things were definitely my fault, like my choice of fabric, and my choice of fabric. I think the sizing issue is a little bit 50-50 because the size that they give versus the size that you should choose to have a successful garment is not the same. But I also think that you cannot choose the sizing according to the finished garment measurements. So something in between. So I'm not going to tell you not to sew this dress. I'll just caution you to avoid the version with the cuffs and make a wearable toile to make sure that you nail the size for the fit that you want. Now, projects that I'll be working on during the next week. I had mentioned that I wanted to use Simplicity 9114 and I've already cut that pattern. I'm working on it. You can see it in the dress form. This is the one that I mentioned that I wanted to do half black and half white. I've already cut all the big pieces. I've cut the lower piece that is missing, that needs to be gathered, and it is going to use in total 4 meters of fabric, so 2 meters of white and completely 2 meters of black fabric. So if you want to do it, just take in consideration that is a kind of fabric hungry dress, I would say. So if you want to do this, you only need to modify 2 pieces. All the others you just cut half of it in white and half of it in black. So the back piece, you need to add a seam allowance in the middle instead of cutting it on fold, and you cut half in white and half in black. And the other piece is the neckband, the collar, I mean. The collar comes in the pattern as a full piece. This is my traced piece. It comes as a full piece. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to add a seam allowance, and I'm going to cut half in black and half in white, and then I'm going to interface each one in white and black interfacing. What I'm noticing with this dress is that I need to change thread constantly, both my overlocker and my sewing machine, because I'm really trying to sew each part in, you know, respective thread color. Even for the pieces that match, I'm adding black thread in the top of the sewing machine and white thread in the bobbin, so to make sure that the white piece you have white thread visible, and in the black piece you have black thread visible. So that's a lot of changing threads, but I think in the end it's going to be totally worth it. As I said, I was doing actually good progress in this dress. I thought that I would have it finished by Friday, but since I got knocked out with migraine for 3 days, it is still there. I hope to be able to finish it by next Friday, so I can show it in Friday sews, but let's see. So the only change that I'm thinking about doing is the sleeve cuff. So the pattern piece itself is just a normal rectangle sleeve cuff, and I have my own that I've drafted, which is for a wider sleeve cuff. I'll show an image right here. I've done it in my Tudor blouse. As you can see, I have not decided yet which cuff I'm going to do. I may just baste one on one side and one in the other and see which one I prefer. I think that adding my self-drafted sleeve cuff, you know, that wide with very puffy would give a kind of statement sleeve, but I'm just not sure if a statement sleeve on a dress that is already black and white is already kind of a statement dress, it would be too much. If I should follow the pattern or do my own, I'm not sure. If you have a vision on how it would look and you have an opinion, feel free to share it with me. I'm still deciding. So yeah. So another exciting project that I'm going to start this week is a pattern test. I've been following NH Patterns for quite a while on Instagram, and I saw when she started working on a pair of shorts for herself in the summer, and then people started asking her to do a pattern on it, and she did. She opened a pattern testing call, I applied, and I got selected, so I'm going to be working on it this week. I'll put an image right here. I'll be working on the shorts version. I actually have a very similar fabric to the one that she used to do her own shorts version, but I'm going to use a less pressure fabric for my first version at least. This might be my last summer project, I don't know, because I'm really excited to start with fall projects already. The last thing that I want to share with you is a new free pattern to me. I found it through a video that the channel And So On did on patterns, free patterns that you can use to do Fall Capsule wardrobe only using 3 patterns, and this one is one that you can do a jumpsuit, but you can also do the romper versions. If you go to the designer's website, which is full of patterns, the pattern is not free, but if you go to this, I think it's a magazine, French magazine website, you can download the pattern for free. It does not come with the sewing instructions, so I only recommend if you're able to sew the pattern by yourself, so you can look at the pictures of the design. If you think you can assemble it by yourself, it's a free pattern. So I've already downloaded the pattern. I'm just not sure if I'll get to it this year. Maybe it's something that will be, you know, in my sewing list for next spring. So now that I'm able to sew once again, I hope I'm able to complete this project before Friday so I can share it with you on the next edition of Friday Sews. So I wish you a great week. Happy crafting!